There's something deeply unsettling about people who observe but never participate. We live in a world that celebrates participation, being in the center, speaking up, joining in, contributing to every conversation. We're told that life is happening in the middle of the room, that connection requires performance, that presence means being seen and heard and actively engaged. Yet some people do the opposite. They stand at the periphery of gatherings, watching. They listen to conversations without adding to them. They're at the party but not dancing, in the meeting but rarely speaking, present in the room but somehow separate from it, content to observe while others perform. You might know someone like that. Maybe you are someone like that. And if you are, maybe you've wondered, am I missing out on life? Is something wrong with me for preferring to watch? Why do I feel more comfortable on the edges than in the center? Or maybe you're watching someone who never joins in and you're wondering, are they judging us? Do they think they're above this? Why won't they just participate? Or maybe you're exhausted from forcing yourself into the center when every instinct tells you to step back and you're asking, is it okay to just observe? Will people think I'm weird if I stop trying so hard? Here's a question that always lingers. Why? Why do some people prefer the periphery? Why does watching feel more natural than participating? And more importantly, what if observation isn't absence? What if it's its own form of presence? It's easy to assume people who observe but never participate are shy, socially anxious, or disconnected, that they're judging from the sidelines, that they're missing out on life because they're not in the middle of it, that something is broken in them that needs fixing. But that's not the full picture. Beneath the surface, there's an entire psychology at play, one that speaks volumes about how different minds process connection, how some people experience depth from distance, and how observation itself can be a form of profound engagement. See, for some people, observing isn't passivity. It's how they participate. It's how they process. It's how they connect without the noise of performance drowning out what they're trying to understand. Because whether we admit it or not, modern culture has created an unspoken rule. You must participate to matter. You must contribute to belong. You must be visible to be valued. It celebrates those in the spotlight. It praises the ones who speak first, laugh loudest, command attention. And yet, those who watch from the edges often see things participants miss entirely. They notice patterns, they catch nuances, they understand dynamics that those in the center are too busy performing to recognize. Psychologists have found something fascinating. People who prefer observation over participation often score higher on traits like introspection, pattern recognition, and what researchers call integrative complexity, the ability to see multiple perspectives simultaneously and synthesize them into deeper understanding. In other words, they're not disconnected. They're connecting differently. And in a world that equates participation with engagement, that's misunderstood. Because let's be honest, most people assume that if you're not contributing, you're not present. That if you're watching instead of doing, you're somehow less invested in what's happening. But when you observe from the periphery, something shifts. You stop performing connection and start experiencing it. You stop worrying about what to say next and start actually hearing what's being said. You notice things participants are too busy participating to see. And that's the secret psychology behind many people who watch from the edges. They're not avoiding life, they're absorbing it, taking it in at a depth that constant participation would make impossible. For some, the preference for observation develops early. Maybe they grew up in chaotic environments where stepping back was survival, where watching first, acting later kept them safe, where the periphery offered clarity the center never could. Or maybe they just process differently. Some minds work by doing, others work by watching. And somewhere along the way, they realized that their deepest understanding comes not from being in the middle of the experience, but from witnessing it unfold. So they stopped forcing themselves into the center. No announcement, just a quiet gravitational pull toward the edges. And suddenly, The people who were used to their participation had a problem with their observation. But here's what's often misunderstood about people who prefer to watch. They're not judging you. They're not sitting back thinking they're better than the people participating. Most of the time, they're so absorbed in what they're observing that judgment doesn't even enter the equation. They're noticing, processing, understanding in ways that require distance. There's a concept in systems theory called the observer effect. When you're inside a system, you can't see the system clearly. You're too close, too involved. Your participation changes what you're able to perceive. But from the outside, patterns emerge. Dynamics become visible. The observer sees the whole picture, while participants see only their part in it. And that's what many people who watch from the edges understand instinctively, that sometimes the deepest form of engagement is bearing witness, that you don't have to be in the center to be present. That observation itself is participation, just a different kind. The people who understand this, they don't feel less than for preferring the periphery, they feel more themselves. But not everyone sees it that way. To participants, the observer can feel like a mirror they didn't ask for. Someone watching without performing creates discomfort in people who equate visibility with value. They wonder, what are they seeing? What are they thinking? Why won't they just join in and stop making this weird? And sometimes that discomfort gets projected onto the observer. You're too quiet. You're antisocial. You're judging us. Just participate already. But that projection reveals more about the participant than the observer. It shows how uncomfortable some people are with being witnessed without the observer also performing. How much they need everyone to be as visible as they are to feel okay about their own visibility. Think about it like this. If someone's observation bothers you, ask yourself why. Is it because they're actually judging you? Or is it because you're not sure what they're seeing and that uncertainty feels threatening? Most of the time, it's the latter. Now, if you're someone who prefers observing, here's what you need to know. Your presence matters even when it's quiet. Your witness has value even when you're not contributing words. The fact that you're processing deeply rather than reacting quickly doesn't make you less engaged. It makes you engaged differently. And if you're watching someone who never seems to participate, here's what you need to understand. They're not absent. They're present in a way you might not recognize. They're seeing things you're too busy performing to notice. And their choice to observe rather than participate isn't a judgment of you, it's an honoring of how they process the world. Of course, not everyone who stays on the edges is doing it from a place of preference. Some people want to participate, but fear holds them back. Social anxiety, past rejection, the weight of imagined judgment. These things can keep someone on the periphery when they'd rather be in the center. And that's different. That's suffering, not preference. But when someone chooses observation, when they're at peace on the edges, that's not something that needs fixing. That's just a different way of being in the world. There's a deep truth beneath that choice. In a world that constantly demands you perform your presence, stepping back to observe becomes an act of self-knowledge. It's saying, I know how I process best, and it doesn't require being in the spotlight. Some of the deepest thinkers in history were observers first, participants second. They watched human behavior, noticed patterns, synthesized what they saw into insights that changed how we understand ourselves. And none of that would have been possible if they'd been too busy participating to see. This is where the paradox lives. We're told that connection requires participation. Yet some of the most profound connections happen between people who can be in the same space without needing to fill it with performance. When you stop equating participation with presence, you begin noticing how much more you see from the edges. You catch the micro-expressions participants miss. You notice who's uncomfortable, who's pretending, who's genuinely engaged versus who's performing engagement. That kind of awareness, quiet and unannounced, feels richer than any spotlight. And the people who observe from the edges, they live in that awareness. They experience gatherings differently. They connect differently, and they honor that difference instead of apologizing for it. Part of this is about knowing yourself deeply enough to reject the pressure to be someone you're not. When you understand that your mind works by watching, you stop forcing yourself to work by doing. You stop performing participation to prove you belong. That's not withdrawal, that's integrity. And ironically, the same people who prefer observation often form the deepest one-on-one connections, because they've spent so much time watching, listening, noticing. They know how to see people, really see them. Not just hear what they say, but understand what they mean. But they save that depth for connections where it's reciprocated. Not for every social gathering, not for every group dynamic. They choose quality over quantity, depth over breadth. These are the people who understand that not all connection requires words, that sometimes the most present thing you can do is witness someone fully without needing to respond, fix, or contribute. Just being there, paying attention in a way most people never do. They don't need the world to understand why they prefer the edges. They just need the space to occupy them without being told something's wrong. And maybe, just maybe, in a culture that equates worth with visibility, their comfort in the periphery isn't absence, it's wisdom. A reminder that you don't have to be center stage to matter, that observation is its own form of engagement, that some people experience life most fully when they're watching it unfold. You know what's fascinating? The longer someone stays comfortable on the edges, the more they notice how much energy participation requires. In the beginning, watching while others participate might feel like missing out. There's doubt, fear they're doing life wrong, worry that they're broken somehow. But over time, something changes. The doubt fades. The need to prove themselves by participating dissolves. And what's left is peace, in knowing that their way of being present is just as valid as anyone else's. Observation becomes clarity. Distance becomes perspective. And the edges become exactly where they belong. It's as if stepping back from the center finally allows them to see without the noise. Because when you're no longer performing presence, you start experiencing it authentically. There's a quiet beauty in being the one who watches. You're not trying to be seen. You're not managing how you're perceived. You're just there, absorbing, processing, understanding in ways that require stillness. And that's something constant participation never allows. But the psychology behind this goes deeper than preference. It's rooted in how different nervous systems process stimulation. For some people, participating is energizing. For others, it's depleting. And those who prefer observation often have nervous systems that need more space, more quiet, more distance to feel regulated. That's not a flaw. That's biology. Every time someone tells them to just join in, just speak up, just participate more, they're asking that person to override their own nervous system to make others comfortable, to perform a way of being that doesn't match how they're wired. And eventually, some people stop trying. They honor that they process differently, that their presence doesn't require performance, that they can be in the room without being in the center. And that's enough. Now, imagine someone who lives in that truth, who sits comfortably on the periphery while others clamor for attention in the middle, who watches without needing to be watched, who understands that their observation has value even if no one acknowledges it. That's not disconnection. That's self-possession. It takes profound clarity to exist on the edges without feeling less than. People who observe but rarely participate often have what psychologists call a secure sense of self. They don't need external validation to know they matter. They don't need to be seen to know they exist. And here's what's even more interesting. Studies on group dynamics show that groups with observers who don't participate often perform better than groups where everyone is trying to be heard. Because the observers notice things participants don't. They catch patterns, identify problems, see solutions that those in the middle are too busy performing to recognize. The periphery isn't where understanding goes to die. It's where understanding is born. And maybe that's the real truth about people who observe but never participate. They're not missing life. They're experiencing it through a lens participants don't have access to. They're present in a way that doesn't require announcement. And they're connecting without needing to prove the connection exists. But society doesn't always make space for that. There's pressure to participate, to contribute, to be visible. And for people who process by observing, that pressure can feel suffocating. So sometimes they pull back further, not because they want isolation, but because the constant demand to perform participation is exhausting. And eventually, they find others who understand, who can sit together in observation without needing to fill the space with performance. Those connections, rare and quiet, often run deeper than anything happening in the center. Of course, there's loneliness that comes with it sometimes, not because they want to participate and can't, but because so few people understand that observation is its own form of presence. That you can be deeply engaged without being visibly active. And that misunderstanding can feel isolating, like everyone else got a manual on how to be human, and theirs had different instructions. But with time, that loneliness transforms. It stops feeling like something's wrong with them and starts feeling like they just process differently. And different isn't broken. So the next time you see someone watching from the edges, don't assume they're disconnected. Maybe they're more present than anyone in the center. Maybe they're seeing things you're too busy participating to notice. Maybe they're not judging you. Maybe they're just watching, processing, understanding in ways that require distance. And maybe, just maybe, their observation isn't absence. It's a different kind of presence. The quiet, unhurried act of bearing witness without needing to be witnessed. Because in the end, we're not all wired to be in the spotlight. We're not all meant to fill every silence with words. We're not all designed to participate at the same volume. Some people experience life most fully from the edges, not because they're afraid of the center, but because the periphery is where they see most clearly. And the people who observe but never participate, they remind us of that. With every quiet presence, every listening ear, every moment they choose to watch instead of perform, they remind us that you don't have to be visible to be valuable, that observation is its own form of engagement, that sometimes the deepest way to participate is to witness without needing to be seen.